Hi, everybody. Welcome to my first podcast. It's called The Case for Construction Culture. And I'm with Daniel Glowatz, who's done a lot of work. I've known Daniel, 10 years, Daniel?
Yeah, it's been a long time, 10,
Since I
15 years.
since I
Yeah.
met you in Colorado many years ago. Daniel works with state municipalities
Yep.
in the water resource arena, and he also does MSHA training within the mining industry. So it's really
Right.
interesting background to me. You have a multiplicity of industries you've been in and types of training.
Yeah.
You're strong in safety. To me, I really admire. You have more letters after your name than the alphabet. I've never seen so many different safety letters. Honestly, I
Yeah.
counted them. I think it's 25. You just need one more degree or certification, Daniel,
Yeah.
and you have the whole alphabet. So we're talking today about culture and about construction culture. And I'm
Awesome.
curious, Daniel, your experience. When I say culture, it's such a giant word.
It
What are
is.
some of the things you think about in the context of what you do? What is culture?
It is. Culture, I think, really defines the company, right? And if they're successful, whether it's by the month or the year, whether they're successful as they go through on getting work, getting jobs, and completing them successfully on
Mhm.
time, on budget, and nobody's getting hurt. I think culture goes hand in hand with your values.
Mhm.
Somebody once told me that things could change day to day, but the values can't change. And when values can't change, and that's a really strong culture.
Nice. And in all your years of the work you've done,
Yeah,
what would you say about shaping or changing a culture? If culture is something that's not easily changed, if culture
right,
is about values, and I completely agree, and
right.
I do core values processes myself, and I'm sure you've been part of that.
Yeah.
How does one like you go about shaping or changing a culture? I mean, safety is so important.
Right.
How do you do it? Have you done it? What do you say about shaping or changing culture when it
Yeah.
looks so permanent?
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. And I'll tell you, it's no easy task. It's no easy feat to get that done. I've been on a couple journeys with some companies with culture change. And I'll tell you, the one thing I think I've learned from a safety perspective is that the safety person can't do it on their own, right? It really truly takes everybody going down that same path. I remember we used a company called Caterpillar Safety Services. It's actually Caterpillar, but it's their own department,
Yes.
safety services. And
Yep.
when they came into our organization that I was working for at the time, we had some major issues in the company, right? We were getting people hurt. The recordable rates were high. Our work comp claims were high, and we knew we had to do something about it. We had to have change. But it's easy to go out there and beat the drum and say you shall do this, and we didn't want to do that. We wanted people to want to change on their own because it was the right thing to do. So we invited them in. They came in. We did a successful survey on every person in the organization, and we knew where some of our issues were from that survey. And we started creating what we call continuous improvement teams, and just started creating those teams and started working on a lot of those issues that we had. The teams were made up of different individuals across the organization, from your hourly workforce to your engineers to management, just all over the company. And we started really seeing a lot of culture change that way because a lot of that stuff was coming from the employees. And that change was coming from the employees and not the safety person, or not the president said that we had to do it this way. So when the employees started making that change, it was great. It was really cool to see the turn of injuries, illnesses, on the job, just near misses, everything that comes with our job. All that stuff started to change. And so when I seen that, I really knew that the key thing was to get employees involved and help them help me make the change. And so that was definitely the key indicator there for me.
Wow, now you sound like Jerry Maguire. Help me help you.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
right. It's
and
it's
I am
true.
I am somewhat familiar with the Caterpillar Safety
Mhm.
Services. I know some of their key leaders in Peoria. They do amazing work, some of the best work I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
in the world. So you're fortunate, I think, to have been around them.
definitely.
That's a great story and what it takes. Did it take a year, a month, a decade? What was a rough?
You know
time
what?
frame?
That's a good question. You asked that, but I'll tell you, I think it never ends, right? I think, when we started seeing things change, it was about a year, with
Mhm,
our recordable rates, 2 or 3 years getting better. We were doing leading indicators after that, right? We were managing our leading indicators, coming up with KPIs that we were doing, but it took
mhm,
2 or 3 years. But I think as we had this process in the organization, it's a continuous process and it never changes. And when people come into the organization, they see that's how we run this company and this is what we do from continuous improvement teams. And when people go into an organization and this stuff is already happening, they usually just get on board,
mhm.
and it's a wonderful thing to see.
I love hearing you say that it never ends because
Right.
this is my business, Daniel. I love
Yeah.
that idea that I'll just keep working forever, but that's not the way it goes. And there's a difference, of course, between it's ongoing, it's constant, it never ends,
Yeah.
it's your job. But in terms of engaging an outside source like Caterpillar or like Esch Consulting, what's your guess? Let's say you had, I
Mhm.
don't know how many you had in that organization, but let's say you have 150 people. um, what's your rough estimate of how long you would engage an outside person if you have a pretty good safety culture, but you have some injuries, you have some lack
Yeah.
of alignment?
Yeah.
Give, give a rough.
I think a year to 3 years is fair to say.
I think you're
It's
right.
one of those things like it's a continuous journey.
Yeah,
You're never really done. As things come up,
yeah.
you tackle those problems, whether it's behavioral issues or it's injuries out there on site. You just continue to develop that stuff. And I think after with bringing in third party consulting companies, I think 1 to 2 to 3 years is right around that point. I think that we were able to and mature enough to be able to do it on our own from that.
Yeah, I think it's.
And I think one of the big things too is that a lot of safety people I see out there feel a little intimidated bringing people in because this is my territory. This is what I
Oh,
do. They're going to take my job from me. And I
oh,
think once, and we all thought that, right? But I think once you let your guard down and you let the employees do it, and you accept that help, things can really prosper and open up for you.
do you think it requires some humility or at least some detachment from your ego to do that, Daniel? And if so, how, how did
100%.
how did you do that?
Yeah, I think it was just the encouragement from those guys when we first started all of this and saying
Hmm.
that, hey, everything is going to be okay. This is not your job. You have a place here. What you do is important. However, let's look at things this way and let's go down this road this way. And once you do that and you follow those strategies, it really helps
Hmm.
to know that, hey, I do have a place here. I'm a resource for these continuous improvement teams for the organization, but everybody is job title is safety, right? Not the safety person in that office over there. Everybody truly takes ownership of it, and then it just makes your life so much easier when you learn to let go and let the organization really take ownership of that.
And of course, there's a spectrum of cultures that you've worked in and I've worked in
Yeah,
where that's easier to achieve and that's harder to achieve. And I have worked in
100%.
cultures where the bar of accountability is very low,
Yeah,
and there's reasons it's low. It's it's
right.
it's often the leadership, right? Well, maybe it's always the leadership, but
Yeah,
but in places where it hasn't gone so well, because even the culture change work I do, it does not always go well. And if you
right.
study this stuff, I don't know what the current numbers are, but it's like 2 out of 5 go badly. 3 out of 5, 2 out of 5 go great, 2 out of 5 go badly, and one is kind of half and half.
Yeah.
That's been my kind of my experience and my work. But
Yep.
what do you see as some of the bigger challenges when it doesn't go as well as it appeared to have gone in that one story?
Right.
What are some other challenges? And maybe there were challenges within that story. I'm sure there were. I'm
Yeah.
sure there was resistance along the
Yeah,
way. But
100%.
how would you name some of those challenges?
I think that accountability's been tough, right? It's tough for all organizations. It's always easier, usually, to blame that person that's might be out there on the highway, working, laying some asphalt down, versus looking all the way through the chain of command, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
always easier to blame that lower level guy for something going wrong. But I think once an organization truly looks at, hey, you know what, this ain't a situation where we need to blame somebody or find
Mm-hmm.
fault, but what can
Mm-hmm.
we do better? Right. And I think that's changed me in a lot of ways when I first got into safety, it's this person's fault, or he did this and it was really stupid of
Hmm.
him to do that. But when
Hmm.
you really look at things from a root cause perspective, and what the culture was and why they did it, and really understand that, I think your views and values change on accountability. Accountability is important, right? Without
Hmm.
accountability, we don't have rules, policies, procedures, SOPs. But
Hmm.
I think you really got to look at things a different way versus just saying, this person messed up, let's hold them accountable, right? Because a
Hmm.
lot of times when they're doing something wrong, there's a reason for it, and
Hmm.
understanding that reason, and working around that, right? We can't just take every employee and say, you know what, you're fired, you didn't do right, go get it, go, we'll replace you. Because we know that this day and age, employees are not replaceable easy, especially in our industries that we're in, whether it's construction, whether it's mining. So we really got to value our employees and learn. Most of the time, I think you'll find 8 out of 10 employees that are doing something wrong, there's a reason for it, right? There's usually a reason and a root cause for it versus just I'm going to do wrong because I want to do wrong and I don't care about the system.
Hmm.
So really understanding the reason why behind things, I think helps a lot as we go and we talk about the accountability.
Well, you said so many good things there, Daniel. What caught me was when you talked about the lower level guy getting
Hmm.
the blame, right? That the guy at the bottom gets the
Yeah.
blame. And I started thinking about rank, and I do a lot of work in my coaching and training around rank and power. I think you know some of this about my work, and it's in my
Yeah.
book talking about even what we call seniority in construction, others call rank. In the military, it's called rank. I have a Catholic Church background. There's a clear hierarchy of power,
Yeah.
and the construction world is not that different in some ways,
True.
structure wise, from the military or the Catholic Church, in my mind. And that rank and power, I think, can impact safety. But I'd love to know your thoughts. Do you
You know,
consider? Yeah.
yeah. No, I think you're right. I think it does impact safety. But I think it's okay. There's always going to be some type of rank in the organization. You got to have that. But I think that you got to empower people to know that just because there's that rank in the organization, you can still speak up. You still have a voice, and it's important to us. Um, I think that's the biggest thing because, in an organization, we still need structure, if you want to call it rank or however we want to call it. But I think that the key is making sure people are comfortable with speaking up and knowing that you truly care. Because I'll tell you that an hourly employee knows that if you care or you're just blowing smoke. They're smart guys. They're some of the smartest people I've ever met out there in the field.
I
Um,
agree.
yeah, it's
I
amazing. They're
agree.
they're great people, and they know super fast if you're just giving them lip service or you truly care about their concerns and value their thoughts.
And is your experience that the average guy on the job sites you visit is confident, can speak up to the general superintendent or speak up to anyone hiring? Is that easy? Is that hard? Is that happening every day? What's your general read from what you're seeing these days, Daniel?
Yeah, I think so. I think it goes again with the company's values and culture, and those frontline leaders. Those frontline leaders hold a lot of value in the organization of getting employees to speak up. We could be at a continuous improvement meeting or in the corporate office and beating on that drum and telling them we want to hear them, and we want to hear their thoughts and what they think and what they believe out there and things we can do better. But if that frontline leader is putting them down, when they're bringing that stuff up, it's not going to go very far. So that frontline leaders, such as foremans, are so important to make sure
Mhm.
that they're on board with everything. So I think that's super important out there.
So I would say you are fortunate, Daniel, because I wasn't sure what you'd say. I don't know your day-to-day work world right now that well.
Yeah.
I experience many of the people I work with where that is not the case. We're
Yeah.
speaking up, especially if somebody takes a shortcut, somebody
Right.
does something bona fide unsafe, like they try to cut underneath a ductile iron pipe with a demo
Yeah.
saw, and they pull
Yeah.
that blade guard past the stop. If you know that
Yep.
technique, it's super common in the underground world. Dangerous,
Yeah.
very dangerous from a tool that kills, some say, 10 to 20 people a year.
Yeah.
Um, and to speak up when somebody sees someone doing that, if that's your boss, if that's the
Yeah.
foreman, and you just started yesterday.
Hmm.
Um, so I'm happy to hear that you see it as being that people are speaking up pretty freely, because I see a lot of situations or cultures
Yeah.
where in which I work where that isn't the case, where they don't feel free to speak up. And that's where
Right.
I think seniority becomes a hazard, and it becomes an
Yeah.
unrecognized hazard. I'm sure you've seen that, Daniel. And if
Oh
so,
yeah.
how have you worked with that? How do you manage that? Because that's
You know, it
challenging.
it is. It's challenging when you go into an organization that we call it a small organization under 250 employees. Uh,
Hmm.
you have a top down culture where you do how you shall do how I say, right?
Hmm.
People are intimidated by that, and yeah, you don't want to speak up, and that's going to create that culture of people not. I'm not going to speak up because I'm going to get called out on the carpet. I'm going to feel like I don't know what I'm talking about, or they're just going to blow it off, right? So why even speak up? So again, it takes a transformation for an organization to go from that level to the other level, right? And sometimes it's heartache, right? You might lose money doing that because these guys are not running your work for you, and it's hard to get rid of people when they have that culture if they're not willing to change, right?
Yes.
You don't always want to go to think about getting rid of somebody. Hopefully they'll change and hopefully they'll get on board. And it takes time for people to come around, right? And recognizing that. I've seen some guys where, man, I don't know if this guy's going to make it. He's not buying into what we're doing. He doesn't believe how we want to believe, which is, let's listen to employees. But over time, you see little successes that are continuously happening, and you tell them thank you, right? And you show them that, hey, I've seen you did it this way. I appreciate that, and it
Hmm.
goes a long way with those
Hmm.
guys. I'll tell you, when we talk about being outspoken, so, blue collar guys are some of the most outspoken guys that I've seen in my career,
They
right? They'll
can
call
be.
me out to the
They
carpet. And so when you got a blue collar type person that's scared to speak up, it's a bad culture because usually those guys it's just who they are in their DNA. Well, they're going to speak up if they have something to say.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. And I think there are some cultural things we're probably not going to get into, but I know certain cultures
Yeah.
are, in fact, more respectful for their elders. I
Yeah.
lived in Africa for a while. Some of the African cultures, West Africa, if you're in Africa, very respectful of their elders. Some of the Hispanic cultures,
Yeah.
very, and sometimes some of those folks can be a little slower to speak up. But I agree in general, the blue collar guys and women
Yeah.
are often courageous, often direct,
Oh, yeah.
but sometimes not when it involves safety, Daniel. I've seen,
Right.
this, I don't want to rat my buddy out. This sort of, it can be a blue
True.
collar code of silence among the brotherhood.
Yeah.
But I think I hear what you're saying, and I agree. The final question,
Yeah.
if unless there's something else you want to add to all that discussion, the final thing I want to hear your opinion on is a white paper I wrote recently and had published called "Culture Eats Safety for Breakfast."
Right.
And I think you know the idea there that
Yeah.
what shapes the culture is more powerful than any technical safety
Mhm.
training. But what does it mean to you, and why do you think culture would eat safety for breakfast?
I can't agree with that statement anymore. I mean, that is 100% accurate. I think your culture and your value system within the organization trumps everything. Because if those two are right, your culture and your values, everything else is going to follow, whether it's safety, quality, production,
Mm-hmm.
environmental, everything else in between. It's all going to follow that. So I
Mm-hmm.
think, when we talk about safety, we talk about a safety culture. We talk about a quality culture. We talk about a productive culture. Everything is dealing with the culture out there. So when
Mm-hmm.
it's a positive culture, people are comfortable to speak up. Everything else falls in place.
Mm-hmm.
So values and culture are one of the most important things in an organization. I think today, as far as being successful in safety, in production, and doing the work once, in good quality.
I thought you'd say that, Daniel. I appreciate that. I think you and I
Yeah,
are on the same mind of the same
100%.
mind on that. I really appreciate your thoughts. We could go another hour.
Yeah,
We're going to keep
absolutely.
this short because others don't have maybe more time to listen right now. I would love another conversation another day, but is there a way people can find you or locate you somewhere?
Yeah,
If they
I'm on
want to.
LinkedIn. My name's
Okay.
under, you can always look me up on LinkedIn. I'm very active on there. I think it's great. I post a lot of things on LinkedIn, whether it's OSHA stuff coming down the pipe, MSHOC culture, just all that stuff. So yeah, definitely find me on LinkedIn.
Online, and it's
Reach out.
Daniel Glowatz. I'm
Yep,
not sure I'll put it in there or not. Glowatz, and then
that's
like
right.
27 letters behind his name.
Yeah, don't worry about that. Yeah, just one of them.
Thanks, Daniel, for being the first. Merry Christmas to
All
you and
right.
your family. Happy holidays. And I'm
Sounds good.
very grateful for your wisdom, your expertise. It's great to see a safety guy with so much positive energy. I
Yeah,
don't
thanks,
always see
Tom.
that. So thank you
I
for your
really
work.
appreciate it.
We'll be in touch, and
Okay, sounds good.
take care.